Boundless Authenticity podcast, where we discuss everything related to the evolution of human consciousness. This is episode 38, and my guest today is Kate Thorvaldsen, author, artist, speaker, and ET experiencer. When I first heard Kate's story, I was floored because much of what she speaks about has tremendous resonance with me. And since you guys have been asking me about ETs and other paranormal experiences, I thought that Kate would be the perfect person to have a conversation with. You can find Kate's book, A Hybrid Story, where she talks about her life experiences with ET and paranormal activity, as well as her spiritual journey, at katethorvaldsen.com. I have to say, this was such a fun conversation, and Kate and I chatted for an hour after the show was finished recording. What a wonderful person she is. We both agreed that our discussion after the podcast needs to be recorded, so I look forward to having her back on the show very soon. Let's hear what Kate has to say. So how's it going, Kate?
Busy days. Busy, hard days.
Busy, hard days.
My mother, she has recovered a little bit, luckily. Last time when we were going on the show, my mother, she was struggling a hell of a lot with nosebleeds, serious nosebleeds, and in and out of hospital, and it was, a lot of stuff going on at the same time.
That sounds intense.
It is.
Well, I hope that she feels better soon.
Yeah, I'm taking care of my mother. She's living downstairs, so there's some responsibility.
I can imagine that. So, Kate, go ahead and tell us about who you are.
Well, my name is Kate Thorvaldsen, and I'm from Norway. I've been working as a carpenter for the last 30 years, building houses, not furniture. I'm preferring the more big stuff to work with instead of the final little details. So, and aside from that, I'm also a painter, making pictures, an author, making books. Now I forgot to bring my book inside, The Hybrid Story. That's about the bio about my life.
Very cool. I'm sure that everybody is going to really enjoy this episode. I get so many questions saying, you got to tell us about ETs and contact. I'm like, well, who can I find to do that? That's really authentic. And your story really resonates with me. It makes a lot of sense. It made me question a lot of things that happened when I was a kid that I have no idea about. And I've never really asked any questions. So tell us about your experience. What age was your first experience with these things?
Well, I was actually just 2 years old when I had my first close encounter. It's actually a quite funny and a cute story because I remember it so well. It was like it was yesterday. So it was very close up to Christmas time, and my mother, she has put me into the crib for the night. But I wasn't tired, and I remember I was standing in that crib, and the room was dark, and I was looking out at the big, huge windows that were on the other side of the room. This was on the second floor, so you could not see if there were cars coming up or lights or people on the street or anything like that at all. For how long I've been standing like this, I had no idea. But then suddenly, left side of the room, the wall there, was becoming a little bit blurry, and out from that wall was this gray creature coming in through the wall, and it was like it was gliding over the floor and ending up in front of my crib, and he was looking at me. And I guess you must think about how tall a crib is. I was 3 years old standing in it. This one was a little bit taller than me, and we were looking at each other. And of course, I was 3 years old. I didn't know what I was dealing with, so I was starting to blah, 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 and trying to get some response from this creature, but I didn't say anything back. But after a little while, I understood that we were communicating between our minds instead. So it was kind of a pictures, feelings, that kind of communication instead. And I was getting the feeling that he was there to see if I was okay. And for how long we were standing like this, I had no idea. And then he just disappeared in the same way, out through the wall, in the same place. And in the next moment, then I'm seeing this creature together with one more inside of a craft, hovering in front of the huge bedroom windows, and then they took off. And in my head, and I was thinking, yay, Santa Claus was here, because I was told that Santa Claus would be coming soon. So the thing is that 1 week later, it was Christmas Eve, and my mother, she took me on her arm and brought me into the living room because I was going to meet Santa Claus. And in the living room, there was this guy with a false beard and a plastic face and a red suit. I was screaming my head off. I was terrified of that thing, and I was also angry because that was not my Santa Claus. Because he did not look like that.
I would be angry too. I mean, Santa Claus, first of all, Santa Claus used to scare me when I was a kid as it is. I couldn't really figure out why it was necessary or why there was a guy in a red suit everywhere just saying strange things. So it's funny to me that the contact with the ET felt more normal than Santa Claus to you. In a lot of ways, I understand that, you know. I find it very interesting.
And he wasn't like a fake plastic face and the false beard and all that kind of things. And of course, when he was standing in front of me, he was not giving me any kind of feeling of why should I be afraid?
Yeah, I mean, what did your mom say when you started to freak out? I mean,
well, I thought it was a little bit weird because since I was also saying that my Santa Claus did not look like that. And but of course, she understood quite quickly what I had experienced. But she didn't say much more anything more about it because on my father's side, they don't have any close encounters. They haven't seen them. But on my mother's side, she has seen them when she was younger, and my grandfather has seen them. Several aunties have seen them. So it runs with the family on one of the sides.
That's really interesting. So is it safe to say that they've been tracking your family on your mother's side?
I don't know.
You don't know? We've never asked?
I don't know. No, I never asked.
That's interesting. Oh, you don't want to know?
Well, most of those people, they are dead.
Fair enough.
So I can't ask them.
It seems like a pretty big obstacle right there, yeah?
Very much.
Yeah. So has your mom had experiences with this?
Not close encounters that she can recall, but she has seen them in the distance several times.
She's seen them in the distance?
Well, like the spaceship over the house or close to the house where they were living. And she is also the one that has told me that my grandfather and the aunties, they were standing outside of their house in that place, and they also could see this like a cigar-shaped craft. Very close up.
Cigar-shaped craft. Yeah, that's interesting. I've seen that one myself. Is it safe to say that where you live, it's a hub for a lot of ET activity?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not more than normal. I think that probably Mexico area is one of the places where there are most of them.
Okay, that's interesting. So, are you still experiencing contact?
No, it actually has been quiet for a long time. The last time I had more contact was in Bulgaria in 2018.
Oh wow! What was that like?
No, it was how to say it. I was down there on a conference there to have a lecture about these topics here. And I was in a very, very bad state. I had just almost broken my ankle 1 week before takeoff in the plane. So I was jumping around on crutches and my blood pressure was sky high. So I was not feeling good at all. So, and then one of the other speakers was saying that, why don't you ask them for help? And I said, well, perhaps I should, because I haven't done that for years. It's becoming some kind, if you don't have the regular basis when you are seeing or experiencing something, the normal life takes over, kind of. So, but back to Bulgaria, I went up to the hotel room, lay down, and I was asking them say that I need some help on my legs and on myself and everything. And I was lying there, I don't know for how long, but it wasn't long at all. And imagining the feeling yourself, if you know that you are in the hotel room all alone, and then suddenly someone very, very physically, like this, 2 hands on your knees, not a gentle touch, but really, so you can really feel that someone is grabbing your knees, stroking them down to the ankles and out. Trust me, you will be sitting up in that bed for a split second and looking around and, what? And there was nothing there.
Totally
you couldn't get anyone. And this was happening 50 times.
Yeah.
So, and after that, I did feel better. And when I went back downstairs, there were a lot of people talking that some people have seen a craft actually hovering above the hotel. So if that was a coincidence, I don't know. But it happened
really
at the same time.
Coincidences. I don't see how that could be a coincidence. That is very, that's a unique experience. And that resonates because it reminds me of when I was about 6 years old. I was laying in my bed and I saw, it's very interesting how your experience parallels with this one, because I saw almost like the door opened up, except it didn't. It was a different door. Like I saw an actual door and it was white, grayish, and it opened up and a being came in and it just sat on my bed, and I felt the weight as if something physical, a person had actually sat on the edge of the bed. And I remember freaking out, but I also remember blacking out, like going completely back to sleep. And I have no idea what happened. And I've never been to any hypnotherapist or anything to find out if anything happened. I don't want to know. The thing you're telling me there is actually very interesting, because I have very much the same experience, but it wasn't with aliens. That was one of the paranormal experience I have, because I'm actually quite sad. Went to my room for the night and going to bed. I was lying on the side on the bed, and then in the same way as you were saying, you are seeing the door open, but it's not open, but you are seeing the door is opening. And then I could hear the footsteps over the floor, and I can also feel the physical weight of someone sitting down on the side of the bed. And when I was lying here, looking this way, I could not see anything, but it was like my consciousness was out of my head for a split second, up on under the ceiling. So I was looking down at myself in the bed, and then I also saw this woman sitting next to me on the bed. And then in the next moment again, then I was back in myself again. So and this person, now I couldn't see her again, because now I was back into myself, but I could feel her. And everyone who has been, let's say you have been playing fun with your kids or anything like that, let's say you're lying on your blanket and someone is lying on top of you or around you, you will feel that your blanket is like, it will be like a cocoon kind of feeling. You are quite tight. So this person, she was laying down behind me in the bed and hold around me. And I was actually feeling quite peaceful and fell asleep. That's really interesting. What did she look like?
I couldn't see her face, but I saw it was a woman. Dark hair, dark blonde hair.
Really? Did you ever get any inkling that maybe it was a family member or anything like that? Someone you never met?
Never asked. I was just thankful for the company. I was feeling alone. So if I couldn't get any company from this side of the world, I was getting it from the other side. Didn't matter. We're a lot alike in that respect. Sometimes I want to know, and other times I just really don't want to know. I feel like knowing the details is just going to send me in the wrong direction. And
I have to ask about your other ET contact experiences. So do these entities, these beings, do they come to you often? Do they talk to you still? Do you feel like they're...
it was more when I was younger.
Do you get a sense that they're guiding you or anything like that?
No, you have to guide yourself. A lot of people, sadly, they are putting, it's like everything that is happening in their life, oh, it must be the aliens, oh, there must be the other side who's doing it. No, in most of the stuff, or almost 99% of what you are doing in your life is you are attracting it yourself. You're doing it to yourself. So I agree
with you on that. And
too many people are putting too much responsibility over to the aliens or to the others, and they have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, why do you think people do that?
Most people, so many people always looking for the answer outside themselves. They're looking in the wrong place.
True. So do you have any like implants or anything?
Yeah. I can start with the story that was happening before with the implants, if you want.
Yeah, definitely tell me that story.
That was my last close encounters. That was a really serious one and really changed me for a long time. I was around 30 years old, and I was going up to a place called Ghoul. It's a Ghoul mountain. So it was 20 kilometers to the nearest, the closest house. You can say I was quite isolated up there, and I was supposed to be up there for 2 months and write my book. So I've been doing it for a long time. It took a seriously long time, that book. I really enjoy it to stay up there because it was so peaceful and quiet that you can hear the quietness. Then it is quiet enough. And well, I guess I was there almost a week. It was quite a short trip. It didn't become the 2 months I was hoping for. From being there up there and really enjoying myself. Then I was waking up one morning and my nose was sore. And when I saw my face, it felt weird because I had this gray, greenish, dry liquid from my eyes and also from my nose a little bit. And I also had this very strange mark. Imagine if you're having, if you look at a fork, you have this very sharp edges of a fork, but it was like a grip, a mark over my face, over my eyelid, like this. And there's no pillow mark. Trust me, I do see the difference from a pillow mark. And even then, it will be difficult to press a pillow in that way. You couldn't do it. And my first response was that, am I going to be sick or anything like that? But it didn't feel like that either. And of course, since I was alone in the cabin, the daily life have to take over because I have to fire up the place, I have to make food, all these kind of things to make things running, because this was a cabin without electricity and all this kind of stuff. And so the day went by, I was feeling quite normal. But when the evening came, most people knows how a stressed animal in a cage look like. You can't sit still. Every fiber in my body told me that something had happened and I could not remember what. And I did not want to sleep that night. So I guess I was reading the same magazine perhaps 13 or 30 times over and over and over again because I did not want to go to sleep. And the next day I was able to get in contact with the people that owned the cabin I was hiring. And they said, okay, we can come up and pick you up later in this evening. So I was sitting there ready and packed, could not wait for them to come fast enough to pick me up. And when they finally came, there was completely quiet. And then suddenly two men with their big feet into the veranda and talking at the same time. I guess I was almost up under the ceiling about just wow, of the sound of them coming. And then they take me back to the civilization with the power and everything, electrical power and so on. And that was the time when I knew something was wrong. And the first thing you do when you're coming back to civilization, charging your phone, because I had an old car battery that I was trying to put the power on it. So I was going to put the power on it. And when you're taking that thing and the battery charge and put it into the socket, I guess most people know how terrible it sounds when the microphone is screaming. That was the sound. Normally, you can't hear your mobile phone charger.
Yeah.
That was the sound of it. And light bulbs and all kind of electrical devices, you could hear the sound all over the place. It could drive me nuts. And when they were talking super loud. So I needed to have paper cuttings into my ears to try to get the sound down. I was light sensitive, and my boyfriend back in those days, he was one of the leaders of UFO Norway, and he come and pick me up. And he could really test out the changes in me, because I could stand with my face in the opposite direction, and he can take in and out from the socket, so he knew I was talking the truth. That I could hear that terrible sound from the charger, or not. So, and when I was 10 years old, on my second close encounters, I lost my sense of smell. Now it suddenly came back. So the perfume that he bought for me sometime before that, I used it on my neck just to please him, but I could not smell it. Now I did the same thing. I walked out to his office just to turn inside again, just to wash it off, because it was too much. So all the senses was heightened big time. So, and of course, after this, he said that, okay, so no, I was mixing it up a little bit with him when it comes to the implants. Actually, it went several years where we have been talking about implants. We have been joking about implants. Perhaps I have someone, perhaps I don't. And then I was having an interview with a man called Sid Goldberg from Gaia TV in Canada. And he has been working with several people when it comes to implants. And he said, why don't you buy one of those small neodymium magnets? Oops, they look like this. Tiny little one, but they're super strong. They're not the same as you're putting on your fridge. And he said, why don't you try to put them on? Because I had this triangle-shaped thing on my neck that I could feel now and then. And of course,
is it still joking.
No, now it's gone.
Wow.
Yeah, but the thing is that one thing is to joke about that you perhaps have implants. But when you are taking a magnet and you put it on and it sticks, you are getting a little bit of wow. Okay, what's this? What's going on? And after that, we had a little research party on my body. Until now, we have found more than 30 places, and they're more or less symmetrical placed. And of course, now I have some makeup on. As you can see, that one will not fall off. We put it on the other side. I can jump if I want to. It will not fall off.
Wow. So this is in 30 places, you say?
More than 30 places. Oops. So when we did the test, if someone else wanted to test it too, it's very important that you're trying to keep your body as neutral as temperature as possible. You're not sweaty or anything like that, or no makeup and all of this. You should be as dry as possible, and then you can try it on. If I have it as much as half a centimeter out of place, it will fall off. But after the research we did, we found I have 2 here, both sides of my nose, 2 here, 5 in the front, all the way down my spine, and several also implants in the stomach and all the way down in the back. So after that, we haven't bothered to do anything more.
Wow, that is very interesting. Do you think they serve any particular purpose? Do you feel differences in your body? Does it feel like it's making any changes to your body?
No, I haven't felt a thing. There's no scars, nothing.
Really?
And of course, then my boyfriend in Norway, he was using a chiropractor that also had an X-ray machine, because you can't go to your doctor and say, hey, I think I have implants, can we take X-rays? They will bring you the white coat instead and put you in some place dark and drug you down instead. So, but we managed to get an appointment with this chiropractor. And even then, they was bringing me in the back door. I was not in their protocols or the papers, files or anything. So we were in there taking pictures. And on the X-rays, you can see, when you zoom in, you can see this tiny little black. It looks like a little rice corn, kind of.
Wow, that is super compelling and somewhat creepy, if I'm being honest.
The hospital said that the way it's placed, it looks like you are like a walking, talking radio antenna. So...
that is very interesting that they would say radio antenna. I mean, you don't feel like anything at all is happening in your consciousness, like it hasn't changed anything?
No. Yeah, the only thing actually that has changed is that I'm working on another book now that is called Regression. And it's very easy for me to, how to say it, if I have the right question and I send out the question, then I will get the answer back. It can come immediately, or it can come after a few days, or it can come later. And then suddenly it's like a film that is coming down, loading down. And the good thing with this kind of film is that when you have downloaded it, it's a part of you. There's nothing that you need to go around and try to remember or anything like that. And my entire book, The Creation, is based on this.
So can you give me an example of the questions that you've asked?
Well, it can be the last thing that I am dealing with now is that the beginning of it all.
Okay, and any answers that you would like to share?
The thing is that I can't share the answer with you because there's so many other things you need to understand first before I can come to that place. So that's very important when I'm doing this book, is that even if you like to know a lot of other stuff, perhaps can be more interesting later in the book, it's very important that you start in the beginning of the book, because I'm starting with the biggest picture, the picture of it all, and ending up with the smallest in the beginning. So to understand one thing, we need to understand the other thing too. It's like those scientist people that are most people have heard the comparison with the 5 scientists people that are holding an elephant. One is holding the trunk, one is holding the leg, one is holding the tail, and everyone's saying, "Oh, this is how it is." No, it isn't, because you're just holding a part of it. You have to see the entire elephant first before you actually know what they are holding.
I understand. And these things tend to have layers to them that it takes a lot of time to really unpack and understand everything.
Yeah. That's the same thing for me, because a lot of these questions, I've had that question for as long as I can remember, but I also had to get the knowledge on the different other parts first before I could get to the level where I actually can ask the question and get the right answer.
So you have been in like past life regression or anything like that before?
Yeah, I have.
And did you come up with anything that was particularly interesting? Do you have any, your favorite experiences?
I don't need to go to the regression thing to remember past lives. A lot of people can actually, if they're curious about past lives on themselves, they can start looking into places on the earth they are feeling drawn to, language they are drawn to, food, what kind of hobbies, all these kind of things. can give you an answer. For me, this life has been very infiltrated by one of my past lives that is from Mongolia.
That's interesting. Can you share any details about that? Or is that all in your book?
I can. No, it started actually already when I was around 11, I think. I wanted to be a fashion designer, and I was drawing clothes and all of that, but there was one particular outfit I liked to draw, but it never became right, because I was drawing this short jacket with some fur around here, but also there was this like a belt with some material in front of the back. And I was drawing them again and again and again and again for a long time, but there was something that wasn't right. But then one day I was putting them together, and it was the Mongolian outfit. That was the first thing. And then I was also desperately, I wanted so badly an eagle or a hawk. But of course the eagle will be the absolutely the best. And I was actually buying 2 pigeons instead. Remember, I was 11, 12 years old, so I was getting some pigeons instead in a desperation for an eagle. Of course, we can't compare. My mother, she was giving them further away. We were not keeping them. So I also had this thing that I wanted to have around this skin thing that you wanted to have around your arms. Like Conan kind of had it, This is thick. I'm not sure have you seen Conan, the Barbarian?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. To that big bracelet thing that he wears.
Yeah, most people, I'm using him because most people have seen those films and know what kind of talking about when it comes to the leather thing around here. And I also wanted to use that. And the thing is that Mongolian people dealing with eagles, they do have that because the eagles were normally sitting on it, and then it needs to be quite thick. And so there were these very small details of this up through my life. But the strongest feeling I had when it comes to my Mongolian life was I was also in my 20s. Me and my boyfriend, we was out there driving, and it was wintertime. And while we were driving, suddenly I did not see the things that were around the car anymore. I was sitting on the top of a horse, and the vision was so clear. I could actually see the different colors in the mane of the horse. I could see my own clothing. I knew how I looked like. I see the nature around me. But the overwhelming feeling that I had was that I was very soon going to be home to a person I loved very much. And then in the next second, I was back in the car again. And I was so frustrated. It was like every fiber in my body was just, what? No, I'm in the wrong place. I should not be here. Take me back. And of course, I couldn't say anything to my boyfriend because he had no clue what I was talking about. So, that really changed me big time. It really burned itself into my memory. And there was also this song. I never knew what that song was about, and I did not even know it was Mongolian. But it was a very special song that every time I heard it, and it wasn't often, it's like the whole world stops, and you are out there in the fields, and you just wanted to go someplace, but you wasn't sure where it was. Now in 2017, I was lucky, and I was actually going to Mongolia. And when I came down there, I got a lot of wows. The first one was when we were, it was a little tiny group, and we were going to this national theater down there. And you had dancers, you have singers. And then 2 ladies started to sing, and they were singing that song I loved. And I telling this women guide, I tell her that every time I've heard that song, it's like I'm being frozen, and I'm always out there in the fields. And she's looking at me and she's saying, that's what they're singing about. Out there in the fields.
Wow.
And when we were driving out there, from Ulaanbaatar and out into the open areas, I thought it was so crazy because the other people that were in the car, they were looking at their phones, or they were in this little reading tablets and reading. I was sitting there with my face in the window for hours and hours, and I could not get enough of the nature and the big blue sky. And I said, you know what, there must be a word for big sky. And in my head, I hear Tengeri. And she's looking at me. Yes, it is Tengeri. And we were also talking about different kind of stuff that I kind of, the way, or the things I'm looking at life, the things I'm standing for. And she could actually tell me that her grandmother had taught her in the same way. So that's also very funny.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. And when we had our first stop and the first night out there in the bush and we were going to sleep in a yurt, the first thing I did, I was up there in the closest mountain that was nearby, sitting on the top there, looking at the sunset. And I was crying big time. I was so happy on one side because I was finally back home. But the person I was going home to for 1,000 years ago, where was she or where was him? I didn't know where he was, if it was still, if it was coming back on a new life or still here, or if it was on the other side, or I was 1,000 years too late. It was really heartbreaking feeling up there, but it was nice to get it out. But later I had a very nice experience, and that was, we were coming to this, was it Costco Lake? I think it was Costco Lake. They had horses there. You can rent them with a guide and everything, and out there riding. And every time I've been riding horses here in Norway, they have always been complaining about my style of riding, because I wouldn't have this kind of riding. I was riding completely different. And when I came down there, and this guy, the horseman, he saw me, and he was immediately, you know those, what's the English word for those, you know those, you're putting your feet in.
The
sitting on a horse. Yeah. He was automatically putting them in the length for tourists. And I saw it. I said, no, Mongolian way, Mongolian style. And he was looking at me, okay. How did you know the difference? I just knew. And so he did change it to Mongolian style. And I jumped on the horse, and I was thinking to myself, well, now is the time for you to let the inner Mongolian just to have a free, come out freely, do whatever he likes for old days' sake. And I did. And then I was seeing, after a little while, I saw the smiling face of my guide and her boyfriend and this horseman. And I was thinking, what are you laughing or smiling at? So I rode up to them, and she translated it. And this horseman, he said that woman, she knows how to treat a horse. That's the best compliment I could ever get from Mongolian, because they are the horse people number one. So
that is so cool. That is just so cool. Do you have any other paranormal experiences that you can share with us? I think you have had some of the most compelling experiences I've heard from anyone. And I watch a lot of stuff to do with this.
Well, I do have many.
Any favorites?
The problem is that I have so many. So the thing is that when you're asking me that on direct, I'm getting blank. So no, there are so many of them. Of course, not everyone is good. I experienced bad stuff too. And I can absolutely stay away from that.
People always want to hear about the creepy bad stuff, but let's talk about a good one. Were there any that happened for you that you feel like you learned something and it changed you for the better?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. That was back in 2005. When that said, I'm not a religious person. I'm calling myself a universalist. But I was interested in Jesus' life, or not what they're saying of the typical thing they're saying about him in the Bible and so things like that. It was another type of book of him. I was always been more interesting of the way he was thinking, or the way he was reacting while he's doing the way he was doing it, and so on. So I was a lot into this kind of thinking. And one day I was sitting in my living room and I was going to the kitchen because I was going to get something. And between the kitchen and the living room, there's a tiny little hallway. I managed to get out there. I don't even remember if I actually stopped or if I was still in the move or what happened. But it was like suddenly this, it's like when you're seeing the door open, but it's not opening. You can see the light and everything. So it was like this light, but the thing that was enormous here was the love, the feeling of love that just embraced me. It was, if you are thinking about someone that are seriously in love and you are measuring that 1,000 times or 100,000 times, it was just, wow. It was insane. And for how long it lasted, I had no idea. As I said, I don't even remember if I stopped or set my foot down or whatever I did. And then suddenly it was gone. And then I moved into the kitchen and I had no idea what I was going to do there. And I had changed completely. Because when my boyfriend came home, I was looking at him that, how can I still be with you? Because the way I feel now, I feel for everyone. It was the same feeling for everyone I met. So I could not put him into a separate from the rest. So I loved everyone I met, animals, people, nature, everything. And it actually took me more than 2 years before I actually landed on my feet.
That's a very interesting experience.
So then I also know when I hear about people that say that, oh, they have had this kind of experience, and then they go outside and then they are judging people that are gay, or they are judging their neighbor, or they are talking shit about anyone here or there. They have not have an experience like that, because if you do, you can't say bad about anyone. You're seeing people for what they are, the true nature, and not the covering around of what they are doing.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. At any point in your life, did you feel like you just didn't belong on this planet?
Always.
Always. Yeah.
Always. Never fit in.
Yeah, I've felt that way my entire life as well. And
the best advice is to give up trying. Just be yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I've just given up trying to understand other people and just, kind of resigned to being like, yeah, whatever. Because there's so many, it's kind of like human beings have expectations, and sometimes you don't know what expectations you have until you meet something that you consider to be ridiculous in the moment. And you're like, well, what was that? And I think that it's a really miserable experience to try to control everything and to, take in all the other stuff that's going on. Mm-hmm. So if it's one thing, a lot of the weirder things in my life have taught me, it's just to embrace being weird, because there's a lot of things that you're not going to understand, No. So I've kept you talking for about 40 minutes now. And if you can tell us about where we can get your books.
Well, you can, if you can wait a split second.
Okay.
I have lots of animals waiting outside the door. Well, here's my book, A Hybrid Story.
Okay.
And this one you can find on www.katethorvaldsen.com. That's my homepage. Mm-hmm. So there's also a possibility as an ebook.
Okay, cool. Well,
that book is about my close encounters. It's about a lot of my paranormal experiences. So I do have one more I actually remembered right now. If you have time, you can talk about that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, when I was living on the west coast of Norway, I had 4 horses. I was working and dealing with troubled horses, and the worst one of them, I bought them and take them home to my place. I had one horse that was called Winnie, and she was an American quarter, really, really nice horse. And there was one day I was coming out there in the yard back of the house, and I was going to take them inside, but she could not come. And I was thinking, what's wrong with you? And it showed that one of the other horses, she has kicked her and crushed one of her bones that is on the back of the leg. So I had a horse on 3 legs, so she could not walk. She did, but it was struggling and painful. So, and she has trouble with her legs before. So I knew that was kind of the death sentence for her. In Norway, we had to ask for the veterinary to come and to say the things that you already know, and then the butcher has to come, because you can't take a horse on 3 legs, bring it anywhere. And I remember when we were waiting for the butcher to come, I was in my office, and everything in me was feeling so wrong, because this was so wrong. And then suddenly, out of the blue, I'm seeing myself as an Indian. That's also a past life. I see myself as an Indian. I didn't see my face, but I saw my long black hair, and I had a long white feather in my hair, and I was holding around the neck of a horse. There were several other Indians around me. And then in the next second, then there are this elderly, very wise-looking Indian man with very deep skin kind of face. And he's like this close to my face, looking me straight in the eyes, and he said, "Never leave your beloved ones in death to strangers." Then he disappeared. Quite clearly.
Because that's what we do all the time.
Yeah, so I knew exactly what I had to do, and I went out to my boyfriend. I said, "You know what? I have to do this." And he looked at me, "Well, there are rules and laws and God knows what for this, and the butcher is the one that has to do it." And I said, "Nope, I'm going to do it because it's my job, it's my duty as the owner of the animal." And he called the butcher on his way, and he explained the situation. So when this guy came, he just showed me the little special gun. It's like a hammer that you put here. And he showed me how to use it. And then they left. So I was getting my horse out on 3 legs, giving her a little bit of food. My own feelings, my inner, all this chaos of feelings, that was taken completely out of the question. Because a horse will read you as an open book if you are screaming and crying and hanging around. It was not about me, it was about the horse. So for me, it was important that the horse trusted me. So the thing I did, I was putting my hand over her eye and asked her to forgive me, and this one at the same time. And she was gone in a split second. So she was relaxed, quiet, felt that I loved her till the last second before she was gone. She was not feeling any fear or stress or anything with a strange man coming in on the last time of her life and doing this kind of thing. And after that was done, then I could sit in my office and scream for several hours. But I knew I was doing the right thing.
Yeah, I felt that one because I've had a similar experience. So I think I didn't have a Jesus experience like you did, but I had a very profound experience where my consciousness shifted, and all of a sudden, I mean, I've always been surrounded by animals, but from that moment forward, this was in like 2015. I felt as though I was meditating, and I felt as though there was this presence that was just so much profound love energy, and it felt as though I had broken into millions of pieces. And it happened so quickly that I opened my eyes very quickly. I was like, what happened? Because I thought that something had happened. Somebody set a bomb off or something. I was very fragile minded back then. And after that, I just couldn't resist animals. And it felt like animals were communicating with me. And I don't understand like in terms of words or anything like that, but there's always a knowing. And
the look and the feeling that they're sending out. Oh, yes.
Yeah. And
my house is full with animals, too. I have 1 dog and 7 cats.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened. That happened with me. The same thing with your horse, where I had a dog that was dying and he had these sores in the back of his mouth. And he couldn't even swallow his own saliva or anything. And you had to take him to the vet. And of course, that tells you all the things that you already know and dishes the death sentence. And he was going anyway. And the only option was to have him put down. And she said, well, you can just leave him and go. And I was like, no, I can't. Like, he told me that he wants me to stay with him until he leaves. So I stayed with him. And then I had another experience with recently this year with my oldest dog of 12 years. And he told me that he was hanging on for me. And I pulled him aside and I said, hey, listen, man, you don't have to stay around here just for me. Like, you've done everything for me that you were supposed to do. Yeah. And as soon as we had that conversation, then he began to go. And it was only about 2 weeks before he left. And I didn't want to, I had that same feeling as you, where I just knew that it would be completely wrong to take him anywhere and have him put down or anything like that. He wanted to be with me until the end.
Yeah.
So
no, if I do have to go to the vet with an animal, I will stay there till the bitter end. I will never leave.
Yeah, I think it's important to be that way with your pets and your family.
Yeah, my pets are my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Kate. Well, this has been a really great conversation. I won't keep you for much longer. Thanks for being on the Boundless Authenticity podcast. When your book comes out, send me an email. I'd love to have you back on so we can talk about the creation of things.
Yeah, love to.
Awesome.
Okay, nice to be here.
All right. Well, it was great to be with you. It's been my privilege. Thank you so much.